Tomorrow morning, you may walk into your kitchen and pull a bag of coffee. You measure the grounds, fill the reservoir, wait for the machine to heat, and toss a wet filter when you're done. It's a ritual so ordinary, almost no one asks why it still takes so many steps. Now imagine replacing all of it with something thinner than a drink coaster. You place a small American-made tile over a mug, pour in hot water, and wait less than a minute. The tile releases aroma first, acidity second, body third, and caffeine last. The liquid smells roasted, tastes bitter and slightly sweet, leaves a film of aromatic oil, and has no coffee bean in it, no grinder, no paper filter, no pod machine, no grounds stuck to the side of a basket, no pot slowly burning on a hot plate. When the drink is ready, the tile contracts into a dry strip that can be pulled out with 2 fingers. The fictional product is called AromaTile. It was made by a fictional American startup, Daybreak Materials, based in North Carolina's Research Triangle. If the technology works at the scale its engineers claim, the appliance sitting on millions of kitchen counters would do more than outdo a better coffee maker. In other words, brewing might no longer need a machine on your counter. Here's the key. The most important part of this invention isn't that it can make coffee without beans. Other companies have experimented with roasted grains, roots, seeds, extracts, and fermentation. The real breakthrough is that AromaTile tries to reproduce the sequence of brewing the order in which flavor reaches the cup inside a disposable layered material. That distinction sounds small. It is not. Instant coffee gives you everything at once. A coffee pod forces water through ground material under a fixed set of conditions. AromaTile is designed to behave like a miniature timed laboratory. Different parts of the tile open at different temperatures and different moments. The customer adds water. The material performs the recipe. The number that started the project was not the price of a latte. It was the number of variables that stand between a coffee farm and your first sip. Rainfall, heat, disease, shipping, currency, roasting energy, packaging, lavor, grinding, water temperature, equipment maintenance. A failure at any one point can increase the cost of the cup. Coffee feels simple because the complexity is hidden upstream. You see brown beans in a bag. Behind them is one of the longest and most fragile supply chains in the breakfast industry. Daybreak's fictional founder, biochemical engineer Dr. Maya Carter, did not begin her career in coffee. She worked on microencapsulation for aerospace nutrition, finding ways to protect fragile flavors, oils, and vitamins from oxygen until the exact moment they were needed. Her problem was volatility. Many of the molecules that make food smell fresh are desperate to escape. Heat accelerates them. Air destroys them. Moisture changes them. Protecting aroma for months and then releasing it within seconds requires a shell that remains stable on a shelf but opens predictably in hot water. During a late-night materials test, Carter watched 3 experimental capsules dissolve at different rates. One opened almost immediately. Another waited until the water was hotter. The third released only after its outer layer had absorbed enough moisture to swell. She realized she was looking at a clock built from food-grade materials. Coffee brewing is also a clock. The first water passing through grounds pulls out bright acids and light aromas. More time draws sweetness and body. Too much time brings harsh bitterness. Baristas manage that sequence with grind size, pouring speed, pressure, temperature, and experience. Carter wondered whether the sequence could be programmed into the ingredient itself. The first AromaTile prototype tasted like burnt cereal dissolved in warm water. The second smelled promising but had the body of tea. The fifth produced a convincing first sip and an unpleasant metallic finish. By prototype 14, the engineers could create aroma, bitterness, and caffeine. But the drink still felt thin. That failure taught them something obvious in hindsight. Coffee is not only a collection of flavors, it is a physical experience. Oils coat the tongue. Suspended particles create weight. Tiny bubbles carry aroma toward the nose. A beanless replacement that copies smell but ignores texture will always feel like flavored water. So the team divided the problem into 4 layers. The top layer contains what Daybreak calls aroma vault capsules. These microscopic shells protect volatile roasted aromas from oxygen. When hot water hits the tile, the thinnest shells open first, releasing aroma that tells your brain coffee is coming before you taste it. The second layer carries acidity and sweetness. It is made from fermented plant carbohydrates, sourced from ingredients American food processors normally sell cheaply or discard sunflower press cake from Kansas, date pit flour from Arizona, chickpea fiber from the Great Plains, and chicory grown under contract in the South. The third layer creates body. Food-grade lipid droplets and roasted soluble fibers form a fine suspension that imitates the weight of brewed coffee. The final layer contains measured caffeine recovered from decaffeination streams and purified before use. None of these ingredients alone tastes like coffee. The invention is what happens when they are fermented, roasted, encapsulated, and released in the correct order. The fictional roasting process is called pulse roast. Rather than heat a drum of beans for minutes, Daybreak spreads the plant mix into a thin sheet. It then runs that sheet through alternating zones of steam, pressure, and microwave energy. The surface browns. Sugars and amino acids react. Hundreds of new aroma compounds appear. Then cold rollers stop the reaction before the mixture burns. The roasted sheet is milled, separated into flavor fractions, and assembled into tiles by machines adapted from pharmaceutical patch manufacturing. One line can change the recipe without changing the equipment. A dark profile receives more bitter roast fraction. A breakfast blend gets more acidity and aroma. A decaffeinated tile leaves out the final caffeine layer. That flexibility is where the business model becomes dangerous. A traditional coffee company needs different beans, roast schedules, storage silos, grinders, bags, and quality controls for each product. Daybreak needs different ratios in a digital production recipe. The factory can switch from a light citrus profile to a dark chocolate profile between batches without waiting for a new crop to cross an ocean. Now look at the fictional cost sheet. The roasted plant base for 1 cup costs 6 cents. Fermentation and flavor recovery add 4 cents. Aroma vault encapsulation adds 3 cents. The caffeine layer adds less than 2 cents. Forming, packaging, electricity, lavor, and quality testing add another 5 cents. Total factory cost approximately 20 cents per cup. That does not mean the company can sell a cup for 20 cents. Distribution, research, warranty reserves, retailer margins, and marketing still exist, but a box of 30 tiles could plausibly retail for $12, placing the finished drink near 40 cents before milk or sweetener. Compare that with the true cost of the ritual around the bean. The grinder, the machine, the filters, descaling solution, electricity, wasted grounds, coffee that sits too long and gets poured away. The bean may be only one line on the receipt, but the system around it is expensive. AromaTile removes most of that system. The only appliance the customer needs is a source of hot water. Many homes, offices, hotels, dormitories, airports, and convenience stores already have one. This is why the invention could hurt the coffee maker business before it seriously threatens specialty coffee. The first customers are not people weighing Ethiopian beans to a fraction of a gram. They are people pressing a button before a meeting. They want speed, caffeine, consistency, and something that tastes familiar after milk and sugar arrive. In Daybreak's fictional first office trial, 2,400 workers in Atlanta, Denver, and Phoenix received unmarked cups. Half contained ordinary commercial coffee. half contained AromaTile. When served black, 52% of participants correctly identified the beanless drink. That doesn't count as a win if the goal is perfect imitation. But when milk or creamer was added, only 29% identified it correctly. Nearly 3/4 either picked the wrong cup or said they couldn't tell. The results showed Daybreak exactly where to begin. Not with coffee competitions. Not with single-origin cafes. With office kitchens, hotel rooms, hospitals, airlines, college dining halls, and vending systems, places where consistency matters more than origin stories. Then the fictional company ran the test that made the concept famous. Engineers placed a standard drip machine, a pod machine, and a tray of AromaTiles on 3 identical counters. Each station had to prepare 1,000 cups over a simulated working week. The drip station required repeated grinding and measuring. It also needed filter changes, cleaning, and wet ground disposal. The pod station was faster, but filled several large bins with plastic capsules. The AromaTile station used only a hot water tower and produced a compact box of dry-use strips. Daybreak claimed that labor time fell by 68% and cleaning water fell by 81%. Total waste volume fell by 74% compared with the drip station. Those numbers are fictional. But the strategic point is straightforward. A technology does not need to make the best cup in the world to replace an appliance. It only needs to make a good enough cup with fewer steps. Think about what already happened to cameras, maps, music players, alarm clocks, and calculators. The replacement product did not always outperform the specialist tool at first. It won because it was already present, easier to use, and good enough for most people. AromaTile wants hot water to become the smartphone of coffee, a general utility that makes the dedicated machine unnecessary. And this is where the American part of the story matters. The fictional supply network was designed around crops and byproducts already available inside the United States. Sunflower processors provide protein-rich residue after pressing oil. Date packers generate pits that are difficult to sell. Chickpea processors separate fiber that does not enter premium food products. Regional fermentation plants convert those low-value inputs into standardized flavor precursors. Daybreak is not claiming that America suddenly grows coffee better than tropical countries. It claims something more disruptive. An industrial flavor system may not need coffee agriculture at all. The first pilot factory sits in a converted pharmaceutical packaging plant outside Raleigh. The fermentation tanks operate in Iowa. Date pit preparation happens in Arizona. Sunflower material comes from Kansas. Final tile assembly takes place in North Carolina. The company markets the product as an American manufacturing platform rather than a substitute crop. That language is deliberate. Calling it fake coffee invites comparison with the bean. Calling it programmed brewing changes the category. The engineers also refuse to use the word instant. Instant coffee is made by brewing real coffee in a factory and removing the water. AromaTile begins with no coffee bean. It creates roasted flavor from other plants, preserves the aroma in capsules, and performs the extraction sequence in the cup. Whether consumers care about that distinction is another question. Food technology has a naming problem. The more accurately a company describes the process, the less appetizing the product can sound. Fermented sunflower residue and microencapsulated volatile compounds may be technically impressive, but nobody wants those words beside a picture of breakfast. Daybreak's fictional marketing team learned this during its first public demonstration in Austin. The company placed the ingredient diagram beside the serving counter. Visitors who read the diagram before tasting rated the drink lower than visitors who tasted it first. The formula had changed nothing. Expectation changed everything. So the company adopted a rule: show the process, but let the cup speak before the chemistry does. That decision creates an ethical line the company cannot ignore. Transparency cannot mean hiding ingredients behind scientific language. Every plant source, allergen, caffeine dose, flavoring component, and processing aid would need clear labeling. If the product sells itself as a climate solution, its energy use and supply chain would need independent measurement. If it claims lower waste, the tile and wrapper must actually have a responsible disposal path. This fictional invention also has technical weaknesses. Roasted aroma is fragile. A damaged package could leave the tile flat and stale. Hard water might change acidity. A cup that is too cool could fail to open the later layers. A customer who pours slowly might create a different flavor from one who pours quickly. The lipid layer could separate during long storage. Caffeine recovered from another supply chain could become expensive. And coffee drinkers notice details engineers do not expect. The smell of freshly ground beans. The bloom when water first touches the grounds. The foam on espresso. The temperature change across a ceramic cup. The tiny differences between one morning and the next. Consistency is an advantage until it becomes boredom. AromaTile would be especially vulnerable in black coffee. Milk, sugar, and flavor syrups can smooth rough edges. A plain cup has nowhere to hide. The fictional company therefore launches 3 milk-oriented profiles: first, classic latte, vanilla oat, and dark cocoa. The black version remains in testing until the engineers can improve the lingering finish. This is the same strategic lesson that appears across alternative food. The replacement enters through the application where the original ingredient is least visible. It does not challenge the purest form first. It finds the place where convenience already matters more than tradition. The coffee industry would not sit still. In this fictional future, major roasters respond in 3 ways. Some launch hybrid blends containing real coffee and AromaTile material, cutting bean use without changing the label too dramatically. Some acquire fermentation startups. Others move in the opposite direction, emphasizing farms, altitude, harvest dates, and human craftsmanship, the things a programmed flavor system cannot reproduce. Appliance companies respond by making machines smaller, faster, and more theatrical. If function is no longer enough, ritual becomes the feature. A premium coffee maker lets the customer watch the water move, hear the grinder, and control every variable. The machine survives not because it is necessary, but because it makes the process meaningful. That creates 2 coffee markets. One market treats coffee as agriculture, craft, geography, and ceremony. The other treats it as a predictable flavor and caffeine service. AromaTile does not need to destroy the first market. It only needs to capture enough of the second. Consider the office manager ordering supplies for 500 employees. Traditional coffee means dealing with machines, filters, bags, cleaning, spilled grounds, service calls, and inconsistent pots. AromaTile means boxes and a hot water dispenser, even if the flavor is slightly less complex. The operating difference may decide the contract. Consider a hotel with 200 rooms. A pod machine in every room requires appliance purchases and electrical inspections. It also needs descaling, replacements, and a capsule inventory. A mug, and access to hot water could eliminate most of that equipment. Consider an airline. Weight, storage volume, preparation time, and cleaning all cost money. A dry, flat brewing material that creates no wet grounds changes the economics. That happens before anyone debates tasting notes. That is how an invention moves from novelty to infrastructure. It begins where the old system is most inconvenient. The fictional turning point comes when Daybreak signs a contract with a national hotel operator. The order is not for coffee. It is for the removal of 12,000 room machines over 3 years. Every machine that disappears eliminates a future replacement sale for an appliance company. Suddenly, the threat is visible. Coffee makers are durable goods. A company earns money when a customer buys the machine, and again when the customer buys compatible filters, boards, cleaners, or accessories. AromaTile moves that recurring purchase into a product that works with any cup and any source of hot water. There is no locked appliance ecosystem. The company that controls the flavor tile does not need to control the machine, because the machine has been reduced to water. But there is a deeper question. Does the invention truly protect coffee, or does it weaken the people who grow it? Millions of livelihoods depend on coffee agriculture. If beanless products take a significant share of everyday consumption, lower demand could reduce income in producing regions. That could happen before climate pressure provides any benefit. A technology designed to protect consumers from fragile supply could transfer the pain to farmers. Daybreak's fictional answer is a licensing fund that directs part of every sale toward climate-resistant coffee research and farm adaptation. That may sound responsible, but the mathematics would matter. A small donation printed on a box cannot automatically compensate for a displaced market. This is why the honest version of the story is not America rescuing coffee from the rest of the world. It is America building an insurance policy for the flavor, while creating new risks for the people behind the bean. The technology may also change what the word coffee means. Regulators would have to decide whether a drink with no coffee bean can use the name without qualification. Packages might need to say coffee-style beverage, beanless brew, or roasted plant drink. Traditional producers would argue that the name belongs to the crop. Technology companies would argue that consumers are buying a sensory experience. That fight would not be about grammar. It would be about shelf space. If AromaTile sits in the coffee aisle, it competes with coffee. If it sits beside protein powders and flavor packets, it becomes a novelty. Category definitions can decide whether an invention reaches millions of customers or disappears after one season. In the fictional launch plan, Daybreak avoids supermarkets first. It sends AromaTile directly to offices, hotels, universities, and subscription customers. These environments allow controlled preparation and repeated exposure. The company wants people to form a habit before they confront the philosophical question of whether the drink is coffee. The company also makes a cold version. Its layers open in room temperature water over several minutes. That creates a drink that imitates cold brew without 12 hours of steeping or refrigerated tanks. This may become more important than the hot product. Younger consumers increasingly experience coffee as a chilled, flavored beverage rather than a morning pot. Once flavor is separated from the bean, the format can change freely. Tiles can be made stronger or lighter without changing grind size. Caffeine can be reduced without decaffeinating a crop. Acidity can be lowered for sensitive drinkers. Aroma can be intensified without dark roasting. The recipe becomes software expressed through food. That sentence explains both the excitement and the discomfort. Agricultural products contain variation. One harvest differs from the next. A programmed beverage promises stability. The same tile in Boston, Dallas, and Seattle should produce the same cup. For global chains, that is a dream. For coffee lovers, it may feel like stripping away what makes the drink alive. The future is unlikely to choose only one side. Specialty coffee may become more valuable, precisely because the everyday market has an alternative. Rare beans, careful roasting, and skilled preparation could move further toward wine higher prices. Stronger origin stories, and more attention to craft. AromaTile would handle the routine cup. The bean would handle the meaningful one. That division already exists in many products. Most people do not demand artisan quality every time they consume something. They reserve ritual for moments when ritual matters. Now return to the kitchen counter. The coffee maker occupying that space is the final stage of a supply chain built around a physical bean. It grinds or holds the bean and heats water. It manages contact time, separates liquid from grounds, and collects the result. Remove the bean, and most of those functions disappear. AromaTile turns the recipe into a material. The roasting happened in a continuous American factory. The extraction sequence was programmed during assembly. The caffeine was measured before the box reached the store. The customer supplies only water and a cup. The coffee maker is not beaten by a smarter coffee maker. It is bypassed. That is the central idea behind this fictional American invention. Not a machine with more buttons. Not a grinder connected to an app. Not a robotic arm pretending to be a barista. A manufactured object so simple that the appliance loses its reason to exist. Will it satisfy someone who spends years learning espresso? Probably not. Will it reproduce the story of a farm? A harvest. And a roast? No. Could it serve millions of people who want a fast? Inexpensive. Consistent drink before work. That is the question that should worry appliance companies. The first version does not have to be perfect. It has to be convenient enough that customers forgive the difference. Each production cycle improves the aroma capsules. Each trial generates preference data. Each recipe update moves the flavor closer to the target. The traditional machine remains a fixed piece of hardware, and once a generation learns that coffee flavor can arrive without beans, grounds, filters, or a machine, the old ritual stops feeling inevitable. That is when disruption becomes permanent, not when the new product becomes better than the finest cup, but when the average customer stops understanding why the old process was necessary. So here is the final question. If an American-made tile gave you a convincing latte for 40 cents, produced almost no wet waste, and required nothing more than hot water, would you remove the coffee maker from your counter? Or is the sound of grinding beans, the smell of brewing, and the ritual of waiting worth protecting even when a cheaper technology can reproduce the drink? Tell me which side you would choose. And if you want more fictional stories about American inventions that could rewrite familiar industries, subscribe, because the next ordinary object on your counter may already be waiting for its replacement.